Have you ever noticed how one negative thought can cloud an entire day? One word, one glance, one unexpected failure, and suddenly the air feels heavy, your energy low, and your mind a battlefield. But what if I told you that positivity and negativity are not just emotions, they are choices, patterns, and sometimes inherited stories we never questioned? Let's begin this deeply personal journey today. A journey that could change how you see yourself, your relationships, and the life that still awaits you. Have you ever wondered why one critical thought clings to the heart longer than 100 affirmations? It is because the mind is wired to protect, to anticipate harm, to guard against unseen threats, and in doing so, it overvalues negativity. A single harsh memory, an unkind word, or a lingering doubt begins to echo in the mind until it grows disproportionately large. It hijacks our focus, it paints the world in grays, and it distorts the mirror through which we view ourselves. But when did we agree to let every thought that crosses the threshold of our mind become a tenant? Thoughts, by their nature, are like passing winds. Some are cool and refreshing, others are stormy and unsettling, but neither defines the sky they pass through. The mind, like the sky, is vast, but we forget this. Instead, we reduce our identity to the transient clouds that momentarily darken our days. It is in our awareness that we reclaim sovereignty. The moment we observe a thought rather than participate in its theater, we begin to see it for what it is, a narrative, not a truth. Possibility, not a destiny. The art is not in silencing the mind. That is a war one can never win, but in sitting still as its contents swirl, watching with a detached curiosity. This is the genesis of peace, the moment you realize that you are not your thoughts, but the witness of them. And that witness is untouched, unbroken, forever whole. Negativity is an insidious guest in relationships, slipping in through unspoken words, unexplored resentments, and unmet expectations. It does not need a loud voice to enter. It thrives in the sigh that is never explained, the frustration disguised as silence, the affection withheld to punish rather than protect. Over time, this quiet storm changes the atmosphere between two people. What was once light and laughter becomes tension and cautiousness. But have we ever asked ourselves, when did we last articulate what we adore in the other? When did we last say, not just I love you, but I appreciate the kindness in your eyes, the patience in your tone, the small acts you think go unnoticed? Relationships starve not because love vanishes, but because appreciation becomes rare. The soul of a connection is not merely in grand declarations but in the daily acknowledgement of goodness. It is in remembering that behind every habit that irritates us is a person who once made our heart flutter. When we choose to see the familiar with fresh eyes, we make space for gratitude to breathe, and gratitude suffocates the slow death that negativity brings. There is a heaviness some of us carry that was never ours to begin with. It is the inherited gloom of generations, passed down not through words but through sighs, through glances of resignation, through the way our elders responded to life with a clenched jaw or a weary gaze. Without realizing, we wear their fears like invisible cloaks, fear of abandonment, of failure, of love lost before it is ever fully lived. We replicate patterns not because we chose them, but because they were the only language of living we were taught. A mother who doubted her worth may raise a daughter who constantly questions her place in the world. A father who feared the world's judgment may raise a son who never lets his guard down. And yet, here is the uncomfortable but liberating truth. Though we did not choose this inheritance, we have the power to reject it. But rejection does not come through defiance. It comes through understanding. It is when we sit with these inherited stories and ask, who told me I am unworthy? Whose pain am I carrying in my bones? In these reflections, we discover that much of our suffering is borrowed, like old clothes that no longer fit yet still drape over our shoulders. Liberation begins when we respectfully return what was never ours to carry. In doing so, we are not abandoning our lineage but healing it. There is an ache that arises when life doesn't go according to the blueprint we so meticulously designed in our minds. We plan, we calculate, we prepare with such precision, hoping to insulate ourselves from disappointment. But when life defies these carefully laid plans, our instinct is to tighten our grip, to wrestle control back into our hands. Yet in this relentless pursuit of control, we unknowingly cultivate frustration, resentment, and an unyielding negativity. Life, in its most honest form, is a river, flowing with its own wisdom, sometimes gentle, sometimes fierce, but always moving. The illusion of control is the dam we build in its path, only to discover that the river will carve its way regardless. True strength, paradoxically, is found in surrender, not in passivity, but in the graceful acknowledgement that some forces are beyond our command. It is in this surrender that we exchange bitterness for acceptance, rigidity for resilience, and in that delicate space, positivity quietly takes root. There is a voice that speaks to us every moment, not with sound but with certainty, shaping our beliefs, our emotions, our identity. It is the voice of self-talk, persistent, private, and profoundly powerful. Yet, most of us are oblivious to its presence until the damage is done. We speak to ourselves in ways we wouldn't dare speak to another soul. A forgotten task becomes proof of incompetence. A rejection morphs into a declaration of unworthiness. A mistake becomes a prophecy of perpetual failure. This inner dialogue, when laced with cruelty, slowly sculpts a version of us that is timid, doubtful, and disconnected from our potential. But imagine, just for a moment, if this voice became a friend instead of a foe. What if, upon faltering, it whispered, "You are learning," instead of "You are failing"? What if, after every stumble, it reminded you of the courage it takes to stand? The relationship we have with ourselves is the first relationship we ever build, and often the most neglected. Healing begins the day we commit to speaking to ourselves with the same patience we reserve for a beloved child. Gently, firmly, and always with hope. Because the mind believes what it hears most often, and if we are the loudest voice in our own life, let it be one of compassion. The spaces we inhabit, the conversations we entertain, the media we consume, all become the environment in which our mind resides. Yet, so many of us live as though our minds are open courtyards, welcoming every passerby, every noise, every toxin. We scroll through chaos, engage in gossip, absorb the despair of others, and then wonder why our hearts feel heavy, our thoughts cluttered. The mind, like the body, requires nourishment and protection. If we are careful about what we eat, why are we careless about what we watch, listen to, and engage with? To protect our mental environment is not an act of selfishness, it is self-respect. Choose conversations that uplift rather than drain. Choose media that enlightens rather than corrupts. Choose friendships that nurture rather than diminish. When we consciously curate what enters our mental space, we create a sanctuary within, one where positivity is not an occasional visitor but a permanent resident. There is a sharpness in judgment that cuts far deeper than we realize, especially when that judgment is directed inward. We label ourselves too quickly, condemn our emotions too harshly, and seek explanations with an urgency that leaves no room for tenderness. Why am I like this? What's wrong with me? These questions don't heal. They corner the soul into defensiveness and shame. But what if we replaced judgment with curiosity? What if, instead of demanding answers, we ask gentler questions? What is this feeling trying to teach me? Where did this pattern begin? What do I need right now? Curiosity is not about fixing. It's about understanding. It opens doors that judgment slams shut. In moments of struggle, curiosity invites us to sit beside our discomfort rather than run from it, to learn from it rather than silence it. It says, "You are not broken, you are unfolding." And just like the seasons shift without apology, so too do we evolve. Sometimes with clarity, sometimes through confusion. When we meet ourselves with curiosity, healing becomes less about becoming someone new and more about remembering who we were before the world taught us to doubt ourselves. Gratitude is often mistaken as a reaction to happiness, but in truth, it is the soil in which happiness grows. It is not reserved for the grand or the extraordinary. It lives quietly in the mundane. The warmth of sunlight on tired skin. The gentle hum of silence after a storm. A kind word that arrives just when hope begins to flicker. When we practice gratitude deliberately, it begins to rewire the brain, softening its tilt toward threat and lack. This is not denial of pain, but the acknowledgement that light still exists, even when shadows linger. Gratitude demands presence. It asks us to pause long enough to notice, to truly notice, the beauty that never stopped blooming, even while we were too consumed to see it. In moments of chaos, gratitude becomes the still point. In sorrow, it becomes the balm. And when practiced with sincerity, it becomes not just a feeling but a way of being. One that says, despite it all, there is still so much to be thankful for. And now I want to hear from you. What resonated with you the most? Which of these practices will you try first? Let's open this space for healing conversations. Share your thoughts in the comments. If this message stirred something within you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to stay connected with this community of growth and resilience. And before you go, what topics do you want us to explore next? Your voice shapes the space. Let us know, and let's continue this journey of reflection, understanding, and empowerment together.